Hey everybody, happy lunch hour. This is the Workplace Therapist Show. And of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith. This is our at-home edition. And today we are going to be talking about something that feels maybe kind of weird and different, but important. We're going to talk about networking. Like how do you network right now? But actually, I would think it's a really important time to network. And I think I've been doing it okay, but I'm not really sure. And if you've listened to my shows in the past, you know this is a real struggle area for me. And so I get to have my good friend and expert come back on the show, Chi Chi Okezie. And Chi Chi, so good to have you on the show.
I'm glad to be here. Hi, everyone.
Chi Chi, you know, I loved our last conversation we had when we were in the studio, and you gave me some really, really good tips. And I was just getting ready to work on those. And then now we're home.
Right.
So I want to talk about networking and get your perspective on it. But before we do, I always like to open these shows with something positive because, you know, we got enough negative stuff going on in the world. So something positive. Also important. I can't believe I haven't said this yet. Also joining us on the show is an amazing producer, talented, gifted, just keeps me on the straight and narrow. Whitney, how are you?
This is why I join right here. Highlight of my week.
Well, so what I'd like to do is maybe have each of us just share something positive that happened in their world, their life. It could be something small, it could be something big. And so since I've come kicking it off, I'll go first. I've really enjoyed that. This week has been a good week talking to people that are going kind of back into some kind of transition into normal. So it's been kind of positive to hear that. And I thought that was a really good thing. And the funny thing is, while a lot of people that I know have really enjoyed working from home and have enjoyed kind of the virtual element around working, I know a lot of people, about half my clients, that say, I cannot wait to get back into an office. And so just hearing the joy in their voice when they're actually back in their office has been kind of exciting. So it's good to kind of see some things moving in that direction. So I think that's definitely a positive thing. Chi Chi, how about you? What was something positive you noticed this week?
Actually, you know, on Sunday was Mother's Day, so I don't have any children, but I do have stuffed animals, and so it was interesting because I made it a more conscious effort to reach out to a lot of my friends, family, and colleagues than I normally would do because we've been quarantined, because we've had to, you know, experience social distancing. So that's even from sending out cards to, you know, calling or sending text messages. So that was really uplifting.
Yeah, you made a comment there that I want to come back to, but I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. So I'm making
it
really, really good. Okay, and then Whitney, how about you?
So I apologize in advance because some things got Sweet Pea really
you know what it was?
agitated.
It was my voice. She heard my voice. She got really happy.
And she can't cuddle with you, so then she kind of got a little bit upset. So
I know. It's okay, Sweet Pea.
I love that you mentioned Mother's Day, Chi Chi, because I'm going to be selfish with this one. The highlight of my week was definitely being able to see my grandmother and my father that I haven't been able to see in over 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Loved it. We practiced our social distancing. In fact, we were probably like 10 or 12 feet apart instead of 6. But it was amazing. We sat in the yard and it was sunny and we were talking and just all being near one another was wonderful. And my grandmother's cream corn has never tasted better. Like I was like 2 months without this. It's good.
You're making me hungry.
Yeah, you are.
It's lunchtime. Whitney, what are you doing?
So good. Sorry. Just saying. Best cream corn in the South.
So let's talk a little about this idea of reconnecting with people. That's a good segue because, you know, this example of, and I love the Mother's Day, both those examples of kind of reconnecting with people we haven't connected with. So Chi Chi, you know, I am not good at this whole networking thing. We've talked about this. Like, this is a real opportunity area for me that I'm really, really reluctant to try because it just comes so unnatural. So what's your views on networking right now? Like, should people be even considering this and working on this?
Oh, absolutely. Networking is a lifestyle. It's something that you should never put down. You know, a lot of times we have targeted networking where it's if I need to get a job, if I want to, you know, break into a new industry, if I want to advance in my career or my academics, I'm going to network. I'm going to network hard. I'm going to join this. I'm going to, you know, complete my profile. I'm going to meet X amount of people. And as soon as we reach that goal, we're done. You know, everything flatlines. And during this time, especially, I think our networking, of course, is all digital for the most part, but it should also be a lot more personalized. We have, at least we should have, or we might have, a few of us have extra time. So that gives us an opportunity to really take the time to draft great emails or draft good messages or have a particular focus on why you're connecting with someone, especially during this time. A lot of times I know before we would just send out a request, and LinkedIn has been great. You know, LinkedIn now was not the same as LinkedIn 5 years ago. So you have the option of actually viewing someone's profile before you connect them. You have the option to connect with them. You have the option of following them. You have the option of seeing their profile to get kind of a background and understanding, which is very significant because that, as we call, is data. So you can use that data for many things. You don't just want to connect with someone, but you want to be really intentional, even with people that you haven't connected with in a while, you know, going back onto their profile, seeing what they've been doing, what they've been posting, and who they're following, and even, you know, what hashtags. Now we can follow hashtags, which has been quite intriguing. So it really is important to reconnect, especially now. There's always a recovery plan, like I say.
Yeah. So it's interesting that the phrase you used earlier is a phrase that I think it holds us back from doing this right now. And it's
Okay.
what we've all been using. We've been saying social distancing.
Yes.
Right. And really it's physical distancing because we don't want to socially distance. We don't want to say, I'm not going to reach out to anybody. We really should be using this as an opportunity to reach out to people. So since I admire you and I want to be more like you, what have you been doing? Like when you think about kind of how you view this time and you say, okay, I can't do my typical networking events, which you're so skilled at. I can't go out and meet people and see people, show up with goodie bags or whatever happens to be. How have you kind of changed your approach during all this?
It's challenging. You know, this is the hot season for going to conferences, you know, having events, and a lot of associations are having anniversaries. You know, it's 2020, right? So it is challenging, but at the same time, to your point, you don't want to be stagnant. You don't want to be inactive. So the first thing is, you know, I mentioned going on LinkedIn. I will say this, there are tons of webinars out there. The only disadvantage with these type of webinars is that you can have 200, 300 people on a line, and you can't see everyone. You can't interact with them. You may have breakout groups, which can be helpful, but that's still limited. So one of the things that I recommend that we can use to overcome this physical distancing, like you said, is to be able to post and be able to offer comments on different types of posts on maybe LinkedIn or even Twitter or Facebook, because now you're able to interact with like-minded people because you're already following them or following the hashtags, and there's an interest there. And when you're able to, you know, make hopefully a very good constructive criticism or feedback or suggestion, then first of all, you get that visibility. Right? So people will be able to see that. And then other people can comment and you can start to have conversation. And you're having conversation with, you know, individual people as opposed to just a whole group. And depending on how the thread goes, it can keep going and you can be able to, you know, build some type of rapport with these new people or reconnecting with these people. So the first thing I would suggest is to get really active in your posting and also on social media, but being a lot more personable.
Okay, I love that. As you saw, I wrote some notes now.
Yeah.
Okay, so people ask me this all the time. And they say, how much time should I spend on LinkedIn? I don't know. I mean, I know what I do, but I don't know if that's right or not. So, what's your kind of rule of thumb around that?
So we're going to change it up a bit. So it's not so much the time as it is the quality of the time.
Quality, not quantity. Okay.
Yes,
Nice.
yes, absolutely. So even if you spend 5 minutes on LinkedIn once a day, or 5 minutes, let's say 5 minutes once a day. What exactly are you doing with that 5 minutes, those prime 5 minutes? Are you reading your messages and trying to follow up and respond back? Because another good attribute of being a savvy or ninja networker, right, is being responsive, right? The other thing is like reading through posts and liking them or celebrating them. And then also, I've had enough time to do this now, where if someone posts an article, actually taking time to read the article. New concept.
I know. I love that. That's beautiful.
So you read the article, find something that you like about it, and maybe start a discussion from that. And that can be done in 5 or 10 minutes. You don't have to be on LinkedIn for hours and hours on end, by no means. Especially, some people may have the time for that, some people may not, right? But whatever you do, just be consistent. So you had a great point, Brandon. If you decide to, get on LinkedIn every day, then do it every day consistently. If it's once a week, then do it once a week consistently.
So I'm also hearing that maybe a discipline around that. So maybe you go on and you put it in your calendar. I know.
Absolutely.
So you say, I'm going to do it from 12 to 12:30 every day, or I'm going to do it from 4 to 5 or 5 to 6, or spend some time commenting, posting, reading an article for once. Not just doing what I do, which is like watch funny dog videos. Those are good. I mean, I enjoy them, but I could probably be a little more productive and constructive in my time on LinkedIn, because you can get sucked in pretty fast.
Well, the other thing is, and I've done this before, you can Google and find out when is the best time to post on LinkedIn. And you can get a few responses and just go from there if you want to pick a particular time where your post will be highly visible.
Yeah. Okay, so I love this kind of concept of thinking about how you post and provide comments as a way to network, continue to kind of feed your network, right? Because you may have this group, this people you're already connected with. How do you kind of stay relevant in their life? Do you use this time also to reach out to new people that maybe you haven't ever networked with before or met before?
Absolutely. And what I try to do with that, because LinkedIn is getting kind of strange, seeing kind of interesting profiles. And I don't know about you, Whitney or Brandon, but sometimes I'll look at profiles and I think, is this person real? But in any case, aside from that, what I've started doing is asking for referrals. Like with people that I already know within my networks. Is there anybody that you think I should reach out to? Is there anybody in your network that I can connect with, that we can possibly do either mutual business with, or we can just be colleagues and share information, or they can help me with X, Y, and Z? Because I think when you have that kind of referral or that lead, it's not necessarily a cold outreach. And when you're connecting with that person, you can say, well, so and so referred me to you, or you're a part of this organization, and whatever that may be. So yes, I think there should be a good balance in keeping in contact and reaching out to people that you already know, fostering those relationships as well as building new ones.
Okay. I want to open up some questions here in a minute, but I've got a few more for you, Chi Chi.
Okay.
So you are kind of this networking ninja. You're really, really good at all this stuff. What's been the hardest for you in the last few months?
And we talked about this a little bit earlier. I can't go to Starbucks.
That's well, like you can. You just have to go through the drive-through, I guess. Right?
Yeah, it's not quite the same. I miss having meetings, one-on-ones there. Around the city, around Metro Atlanta. I like the space. Just having that creative space to just be. I do work from the house, but once in a while I want to get out. And so that's been the difference with this quarantine life, is that yes, I'm stuck at home, but I can't go out. So I do miss the Starbucks piece. And then also, even though I am a bona fide introvert, I do like people and crowds sometimes. So it's always cool to get a fix to going to a conference or even, being able to do a presentation, facilitate a presentation. So I've missed that.
So that is a great segue into my next question. And then
Okay,
we're going to see what kind of questions we might have on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So Whitney, I'll be going to you in a minute. What's the future of networking going to look like, Chi Chi?
That's a tough one. I have to get out my crystal ball.
Yeah, warms you up to the big question. That's the big question.
I think that there will be a dynamics, there will be a change in the fact that we're using more technology with the Zoom calls or even Google Meets and other types of technologies to connect with people. I think we are definitely going to leverage that more. I think we're also going to use a lot of AI technology in the type sense, not so much for tracking people, but also being able to automate some of the things that we have been doing from a networking perspective. In the sense of management, email management. The other thing is, and I hope that people will learn from this global pandemic as we're moving forward. You want to make sure that you have a balanced networking lifestyle. So you're just as good in person as you are digital. And I think about it like when I was learning French in school, when I went to Emory and I did my study abroad in Paris. And when I came back, a lot of my professors kept saying, you want to make sure that you're able to read, write, and speak proficiently. You don't want to have one that's higher than the other. So when it comes to networking, you don't want to be just good at digital networking or virtual networking and then lag in the in-person piece. And likewise, you don't want to be so great in the in-person piece, but you lag in the digital piece. Digital meaning you're not consistent on the, you're not consistent on the different platforms, or you're not posting as frequently. Your bios or even your types of posts are not consistent, so just making sure that you're up to par in all areas.
So this is okay. This is actually more complicated than I think it sounds in many ways, because you have to really sit back and think about, what's my voice? What's my voice?
Yes.
What's my platform? What am I really trying to promote and talk about? And marry the two, both the content and the style. And then think about, how does that show up when I'm in person with somebody, but also how does that show up digitally?
Right.
And it has forced all of us to I have a little bit of a leg up because I've been doing at least from a comfort standpoint, not necessarily from a visual standpoint. From a comfort standpoint, I'm more used to podcasting and some of using these tools, but I know it's forced a lot of people to do video calls and think about how they show up on camera and stuff that most people don't really want to have to bother with. So it's a lot of things, I guess, is my point. And how do you show up in all those places consistently?
You're absolutely right, but it shouldn't be seen as something that's intimidating, because once you grasp it, we know this, once you get it, you're able to run with it, and people are more likely, with any type of brand, it's more recognizable. There's more trust, and which opens doors for more introductions, opens doors for people to, have that confidence in you and want to promote you and promote your different agendas and initiatives. I mean, I get excited when I post something and somebody else reposts and shares it. Oh my gosh. It's a natural high.
Yeah. Okay. I just wrote down 2 more questions I've got for you, but I'm not going to do them yet.
Okay.
Go to Facebook and see what questions you all have for Chi Chi, because I could talk her ear off all day. So Whitney, would we have any that have popped up yet, or any comments?
We do. And this first one, I feel like ties in really nicely with what you two just talked about, which is Jose asked, do you recommend having 2 different accounts for networking and then more of your personal account? So I feel like on LinkedIn, at least for me, I feel like that's pretty clear, right? Like you're straight up professional on LinkedIn, but like, what if you have Facebook? Like you have your personal Facebook and then maybe you create a page for your professional network. What do you think, Chi Chi?
It's a great question. I think of it. I think of it like the bloggers that I follow. So, okay, please don't judge. When I get up in the mornings, most business entrepreneurs and networkers, ninja networkers, are reading AJC or Harvard Business Review, McKinsey, if you will, and I'm on blog loving, okay? So I'm checking out, what the new styles are from all of my international bloggers, and they kind of have the same thing. They have their blogs where they have a certain account for their business, whether it's travel, entertainment, clothing, and then they have a separate one that's personal. But they don't really deviate from each other that much. So the personal side, they may show they're more of their personal life, like maybe being at home, especially now that we're quarantined, or the different types of things that they eat when they're at home. But they also, from a business standpoint, will go to restaurants and give reviews. So it's almost like the same thing. So yes, you can have two separate accounts, one that's personal and one that's more professional, but they still somehow kind of complement each other, right? So you want to make sure that you still have that same image and it's still somewhat consistent. I think about it like Coca-Cola, right? Since we're here in Atlanta, the home of Coca-Cola. And the thing is that Coke still tastes the same, whether it's in a glass bottle or in a can, right? It still tastes the same if it's in a restaurant coming from a dispenser, or if it's coming out of a vending machine, right? So different settings, different applications, but it's still the same Coke. So if you're going to be in different settings on different profiles, still keep your same core values, your same image.
I love that analogy. That's fantastic. That's beautiful. I may steal
Thank
that.
you.
I'm going to have to steal that. I think I'm going to have to.
Steal away.
And Whitney, I saw you were unflappable as Sweet Pea jumped up and tried to maul you.
I've gotten really good. I've gotten really good at this quarantine thing. And Sweet Pea's interruptions. It tends to be when I'm on Zoom. She can be sleeping. As soon as I'm on Zoom, she wakes up.
She's like, oh yeah, well, you're talking. You're having fun. So she wants to be part of it. I can't blame her. Do we have another question, or would you like me to go?
We do. We have another question. I love this one too. So Emily asks, I've never posted on LinkedIn. I do a really good job of liking others' posts and commenting on theirs, but I'm not sure where to start for mine.
Well, great question, Emily. A good thing is to kind of do a review. See what different types of posts that you commented on, or that you liked, or that you gravitated to, and probably take that theme and use that to create your own posts.
Okay, so I want to build on her question.
Okay.
Because it's going to beg the next question, which people often ask. I ask all the time. So So I thought about, even during this whole quarantine time, I thought, okay, what do I want my voice to be? What do I want to put out in the world that's going to make the world better? Mm-hmm. So I do my motivational Mondays, where I do my dice roll every week, and then whatever the dice roll says, I do. We've got our shows that go on Fridays, and I've got other things I sprinkle throughout the week, and always try and do at least one thing that's funny, just to kind of lighten the mood for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's times that I put out something that I think is really good, and nobody comments. Like 3 people like it, and it's like Whitney, Isaac, Kristen, my web designer, Emily, like all my close people like it, but then no one else does anything. And it's just, it feels like you're just kind of like shouting to the wind. And then yet when I talk to people on the phone, they'll say, oh, I saw your post the other day about such and such. I really liked it. But it's different than Facebook, because Facebook people always comment and engage. LinkedIn, it's a little more of a voyeuristic kind of approach. Mm-hmm. People sit back and watch, but they don't always engage. So if you're not getting any comments, what kind of feedback do you have for people? Should you stop and change what you're doing? Keep on the path? What do you think?
No, you should not stop. Our theme here is consistency. So we're not going to stop. It could have been the timing or the day. why people were not commenting. Or yeah, it could have been that. I wouldn't take it personally. I think we all go through that. Whitney, I'm sure you've probably experienced that as well. You spend a lot of time putting in a post and you have the credits, you've done the research, this is it. And then you post it and you get one or two people that like it, but you know, you can still see some of the views, but it's not as engaging as when, let's say you took a picture of Sweet Pea or something like that, and then it goes almost like viral, right? You have like 1.2 million views. So I think that's part of the caveat of like LinkedIn. Sometimes you just never know, but as long as you're consistent with your posts, I think that's important, with your voice and your theme, because like I said, it is building your brand. It's making you more recognizable.
Okay. I wrote that down. Consistency.
Okay.
I've got my list.
Don't get discouraged.
But you know what you said is something that's very hard to do. Don't take it personal.
Mm-hmm.
And yet what you're putting out is personal.
Right.
So it's, you know, I agree with you. I'm just acknowledging, for me, it's hard. I get sad. Like I need more.
Well, the thing is that it's not consistent, right? So you don't know exactly why people are not, you know, making remarks or reposting or commenting. So it's kind of, not to say it's unstable, but it's fickle. So you can't really put a lot of trust in that or take that too heavily. Yeah.
So I have another question, but I want to give space for in case we've got another one on Facebook. So should I do my question?
We have a really good one, which is, so Holly on Facebook, like a woman after my own heart. Okay. Because I want to piggyback off of her question, because this is the one that was formulating in my mind. And then not only that, like everyone watching on Facebook has just jumped on this. So Holly asked, what are your thoughts on the new world of networking on Zoom? And where I wanted to add on to that a little bit is we've got this new word that's Zoom fatigue, right? Mm-hmm. So there's Zoom fatigue. And then also, what are the lines between doing it on Zoom and then when is it okay to do it on phone? So like, when are the best times to do a Zoom meeting or Zoom networking? And then when is it okay to maybe take that to a phone call where maybe that would be easier?
Great question. Thank you, Holly. I'm experiencing Zoom fatigue. Not currently. No, not right now.
Good save. That was a good save.
And I was actually reading an article on LinkedIn just about this. Sometimes I think we get so used to the common routine. We have to have a meeting. We have to have a meeting. Now that we've gone digital, you know, we have to have a meeting because we're just used to having 100 meetings every single week. You don't necessarily have to have a meeting. I agree. You can have a quick phone call, 5 or 10 minutes. You could even write it if you're able to skillfully write, where your tone and your message is very was clear and concise, and throw it in an email. If you feel like you're emailing a little bit too much, then perhaps jump on the phone. Or if you feel like the phone conversation might take a little bit too long, then I would suggest Zoom. Also, in the fact, if it's just one-on-one, then, you know, email or phone is great. If you're having 2 or 3 more people, or it's more of a conference call, then yes, let's go digital, let's go Zoom. But definitely be cautious of people's time and also their energy. You don't want to overload them with too many things. If you're able to couple, able to group things, able to do it via, you know, email or text, even text messages, then go ahead and go for it. You know, because it is overwhelming, especially when you're going from doing it 0 amount of times to almost 100% of the time.
You know, it's funny, Chi Chi, as you were talking, it reminded me of kind of the old school piece of advice people used to get when you were interviewing and you were doing a phone screen. Mm-hmm. They would say, stand up, walk around, smile while you're on the phone, because people will hear that energy. And I think there's something to be said for me, the Zoom fatigue is when I'm sitting all day long, mm-hmm. very anxiety producing, but also just kind of like, I need to just get up and move around sometimes. And it's hard to do that on Zoom, so a phone call works much better. So I try and mix those in so I can kind of walk around my office and stretch my legs a little bit, and I find my energy kind of comes back when I kind of move around a little bit. So
absolutely. And that's what I talked about earlier, having like those 3 different ways. So we can do Zoom, we can do email, we can do phone or text, kind of keep it balanced.
yeah. Okay, Whitney, do we have another question, or do I go with mine?
Go, Brandon. I can tell you got a good one.
I can do one. Okay.
Itching
All
for
right,
it.
Chi Chi, this is happening to me all the time. Happens to me every single day. Drives me crazy. I don't know how to deal with it. Okay, and I bet I'm not the only one. I get requests on LinkedIn to connect by people that I'm pretty sure are trying to sell me something. Okay. And, that could be anything and everything. It could be, they're an insurance broker, they are a financial advisor, it could be selling suits or clothing. And I know where they want to go. If I connect with them, they're going to then send me a note and say, oh, would love to connect and learn more about you. And what are you up to? And so generally, if I think that's where they're going to go, I generally say, I just ignore it. But I guess my question to you is, when do you accept an invite from someone you might not know? And when do you ignore an invite from someone you might not know?
That's a tricky one. So, and I've been.
I told you.
Yeah, that was a good one. And I've been experiencing that a lot, and I'm sure many of our viewers have been as well, especially during this pandemic. One of the things that I'll do, especially if I don't know the person, once again, you have that accessibility of seeing their profile before you connect with them. So I always suggest doing that if you kind of have this gut feeling. Also see who you're connected with, your merging networks. Who are some of the other colleagues that you have that are connected with them? And how do you know those colleagues? Are you very close to them, or are they just acquaintances? That makes a big difference as well as determining if you're going to let them into your network. And then if you decide to do so, then, go ahead and do it. But if you get that automated, personalized generic email or message, then you can easily cut off the connection and not follow them.
So your rule of thumb isn't necessarily, I've got a good friend of mine, and his rule of thumb is, if I haven't met the person, I will not accept it. It's a pretty black and white. Yours sounds more like, if we have some mutual things in common. So for example, the way it plays out for me is, if somebody got their MBA from Emory, and I always accept that, because that's kind of a group that we've got that's connected, and it's a fairly smaller group, and I always accept those. But in his case, he doesn't do that with anyone he's never met before. In your case, it sounds like you have a couple filters. You'd be like, we have a couple of things in common. Do we know some people enough, kind of run the same circles?
Yeah, and I also want to encourage people, if they're going to connect with someone, take advantage of writing a personal note. You can definitely do that. And when you write that personal note, personalize it and let the person know why you want to connect with them. You have to be honest, you have to be transparent and genuine. And if it means I just want to sell, I want to build my revenue, I want to increase my leads, and just say that, and give the other person an opportunity to decide whether they want to accept you into their network or not.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Another note here for my to-do list. Okay. Whitney, I know we're probably getting close to close here, but I want to see if there's any more questions that have come on Facebook Live.
Everyone is still talking about how they are exhausted by Zoom.
Oh, really?
Yes to last meeting, says Maureen.
So I have 2 final questions for you, Chi Chi.
Okay, sure.
One I think is easier, and one's going to be harder.
Okay.
So the easier one is, what's your attitude and approach towards just sending some notes to people maybe you haven't talked to in years, former clients or colleagues, just some general kind of just checking in, kind of nice notes, but not trying to. I'm not trying to sell anything. I just wanted to kind of reach out and reconnect. Is now if you think now is a good time to do that, how do we do that so it doesn't feel awkward?
Yeah, that's great. And I have been doing that. You can just easily shoot an email. And for me, my email subject line is "Quick hello from Chi Chi." And it's just, hey, I'm checking in. Just want to see how you're doing. How are you progressing? How are things going? You were on my mind. I just wanted to, quickly check in. And email is great. I know that along with being Zoom fatigue, a lot of people have been getting emails. If you're able to send out a quick note, if you have their mailing address, that'll be great as well. I think that's perfectly fine. Once again, it's not going to be anything long and dramatic. You're just saying, hey, I just wanted to reach out, see how things were going. How are you doing during this time? Feel free to reach out if you need anything.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Making some more notes. Okay, here's my hard question, and then I've got a kind of a final question for you on how you can help the audience.
Okay.
So here's my hard one. The future of conferences. When are conferences going to come back, and when you think they're going to come back, and what are they going to look like?
That's a tough one. I think about it like that's one thing where I think that should be the last thing to come back, only because of just the dynamics of conferences. There's really no way you can social distance, unless you're in a lecture form. Even the process of registering, the process of traveling, because it's not just conferences. When you're traveling, when you're using transportation, when you're going to restaurants, when you're eating. I was reading somewhere that they're even, buffets are out of the question right now. Oh my God, so that type of thing, the catering piece, so it's going to be a while. For me personally, and I don't want to go to a conference until they have a vaccine out. I'm being very serious, just because of the nature of it. In conferences, people think the bigger they are, the better, right? The other thing is that, how do I say this? It's going to take, even if we are physically safe, it's also a mental thing. People have to feel comfortable being in those type of environments again, from a mental standpoint, I think. And
I don't want to go to a conference.
Right. Right.
Not exactly how I want to go to a conference. Plus, you know why I really hate wearing these things? My glasses fog up.
Oh.
Horrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so Chi Chi, this was great. I have a whole list of stuff that I want to get working on, and I actually think it's pretty easy. I don't think this is hard, so I really appreciate.
It shouldn't be hard. It should be simple.
So my last question for you is, how has your kind of business changed in terms of how you're helping clients? Mm-hmm. And if there's someone watching this or listening to this right now, what might be a way they could either reach out to you, or kinds of ways you might be able to help them if they want to, kind of work on whether it's networking or anything else you might be offering?
No, absolutely. Thank you. How it's changed for my business is, I've had a few clients that have kind of pushed back. They're not sure about their budget, and moving forward. And I have to be sensitive to that. It's a pandemic, right? You can't say, well, there's a cancellation fee and all this kind of stuff. You have to be empathetic. A few great clients, including our Maureen, who listens all the time, took an in-person event and made it virtual. So they are, finding ways to pivot and things of that nature. And I've also started doing a lot of online courses and online teaching as well, which is different dynamic from being in person, but making it a lot more interactive and engaging. So for people that might be interested, it really is learning how to make your networks viable and profitable, and being able to know who's in your network, so that it's not just about someone necessarily getting a particular service or product, but also knowing who's in your network in order to share resources and gain information, because you always want to be constantly learning. That's an extremely important piece of advancement. And I actually had a newsletter that came out yesterday where I talked about futuristic networking. So networking from the eyes of the Jetsons. And one of the things that I mentioned was, being able to take a lot of these things that you're doing already, having a creative mindset, and then moving it digitally.
Beautiful. That's fantastic. And if people want to reach out to you,
Yes, they can follow me on LinkedIn. I have LinkedIn, Chi Chi Okezie, as well as my business, Simple Networking LLC. I'm also on Facebook. Same thing, Chi Chi Okezie and Simple Networking. Or you can visit my website. I am Googleable.
That's fantastic. That's great. Okay, well, Chi Chi, thank you. This was a great show. I really, really appreciate you coming on. Whitney, any kind of closing thoughts from you before we call it success?
And it was great. Good information. Thank you, Chi Chi and Brandon. I love your mask, your Incredibles mask. Very fitting.
You notice that? Did you notice
and
that?
Isaac says the same. Because he'll pull it over, like under his nose. And I'm like, that defeats the purpose. And he's like, I can't see.
Whatever. It is what it is. Chi Chi, thanks. You're an absolute gift.
I enjoyed myself.
I learn every time. I learn so much every time you come on. So thank you for coming on. And thank you, Whitney, for kind of guiding us and hosting us today. And thank you for listening and watching the show today. And of course, until our next show next week, have a great week and an awesome life.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, buddy.